you got that gold, guess what? Total Protection is coming after you!
Hello, folks. Total Protection Mr. Hughes here for another edition of the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast, episode number 6. My co-host alongside of me, the ATLien. AT, what's cracking, man?
What's going on, Mr. Hughes?
Well, today, we're going to get into it later on. I got a special guest that I told you folks about that's going to be joining us on the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast, episode number 6, the one and only Girl on Fire, Kiera Hogan. We're going to get the details about her career and how she got started. But the subject for today, AT, and I really wanted to get into this, and it's about women's professional wrestling. What a hell of a subject. Like I said, we got the Girl on Fire, Kiera Hogan, later on. So with this playing into that, ought to be an interesting subject. Now, what I want to talk about is, women's wrestling from times past and up to the present. Now, even though you're a young person in the business, AT. You've been in the business about, a decade or more. And so you're not too familiar with the ladies in professional wrestling like myself that can go down the list of all the greats in professional wrestling. But we're going to try to do our best to let the folks know from the time that it started to the present on ladies professional wrestling.
Exactly, Hughes. It has definitely been an insurgence of the women's wrestling nowadays. It's definitely come back to prowess, and it's very predominantly in the wrestling business going on right now, Hughes, because as you know, women's wrestling, females, they just main event at WrestleMania.
True that, and they're trying to make the mark in professional wrestling to carry that ball, to carry the torch, you might say. But we got to start from the beginning. We have to start from the genesis of ladies professional wrestling, which started back in the late 60s, early 60s. And I can remember watching people like the Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young, Dark Journey, Missy Hyatt. I can go on and on, Lana Kai. I mean, Judy Martin, people like that paved the way for these other young ladies in the wrestling business, including Kiera Hogan. Now, AT, when you were growing up, was there any particular woman that you liked watching? Like myself, I liked, watching Moolah. I like watching Mae Young. Those two were two great lady professional wrestlers.
Yes, Mr. Hughes. My favorite female wrestler back in the day was Melina.
Melina.
Yes.
Melina. Yeah, Melina. She wasn't a bad wrestler. I mean, she was way out of there. By the time I got to that, looking at that part, But my thing is, I'm old school to the dirt, and so when I see a match, when the women are doing working holds and working the crowd and have psychology in their matches, well, that's what I want to see. Now, here's the deal: you got a lot of women. Some of them are very gorgeous, but they can't wrestle. And this is the key here, folks. Some of them can wrestle, some can't. The ones that can't wrestle, I guess they let their looks compensate the wrestling part, which is a bad thing to do. Because without the wrestling, you just got a body and they're doing things. And if you want to keep my attention on the game of professional wrestling, these are the things I want to see. Psychology, tell me a story, things like that. When it comes to a woman, it's the same thing, AT. How you feel about that?
Exactly, Hughes. If you ask me, it kind of got reversed because, back in the day, when not towards the middle, they started picking up, going to, modeling shows and stuff like that, looking at female magazines and seeing a pretty girl and just going to them and being like, hey, we can teach professional wrestling. We can't teach, pretty. We can't teach a girl to be beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So nowadays, I feel like it's the complete opposite. They're hiring women that can go. Girls like Asuka, girls like Charlotte, girls like, Sasha Banks and, females like that. But to me, it's like the men that they're picking up, they're going to get NFL stars and they're going to get, bodybuilders and stuff like that, and thinking that they could teach them wrestling instead of bringing in the wrestlers and knowing what they knowing their craft already.
Right, and so with that said, like I mentioned earlier, you had Mae Young, you had Moolah, you had Dark Journey, she was a manager, beautiful manager. You had Missy Hyatt, Miss Elizabeth, she was a lady manager, and then of course, with I'd say back in the late '80s, we had this company called Global, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, come out. Now that kind of changed the dynamic. Boy, I tell you, that's a hard word there. To help me out here.
The dynamic.
Thank you very much. On the game of professional wrestling. Now it brought a new flavor to professional wrestling with the Glow. Glow was kind of like a soap opera of professional wrestling back then. It was kind of the WWE of ladies wrestling back then, entertainment style. But it showcased a lot of women that could get in there and act on top of doing some wrestling things, okay? But, the time that they did it, it was a good time. People watched it. The ratings were hot, but eventually it simmered down. Then we had to get back to reality of real professional wrestling and real ladies of professional wrestling. Now, like I mentioned, you had, Medusa, and she was in the WCW when I was there. She was a great wrestler. In the 80s, she was a hot potato. And of course, you had, China, which low wrestler, so turned out to be a great wrestler. I mean, China was a nice girl. I met her. She was there at the WWE when I was there, WWF at the time. And so, a lot of lady wrestlers, coming up, some of them didn't hold my attention that well. Some of them just had the looks, but they couldn't wrestle. And so I'm pretty sure, AT, you probably saw that too coming up, being that you're in a different generation than I am. And so, maybe your attention span was a little different than mine. But if it didn't have no wrestling in it, I didn't want to see it. That's how you feel about that?
Exactly. I never really watched females wrestling for what they were trying to, sell to me on TV, because when I was watching wrestling, I was young, so I really didn't know too much about, the sexual side of what they were trying to portray at the time on wrestling. So I was more interested in the wrestler women like Michelle McCool and Layla, women that can actually get out there and do what their job is, and that's wrestle, not sell.
Right, and so and I can remember the days when ladies used to get out there when the show you watch was in black and white. I'm talking, that's how far back wrestling we went, and the ladies were, to me, appeared to be much tougher back then than what you see now. It just seems like these ladies today are made out of toilet paper compared to these tough girls in there today. I mean, someone break a nail and they feel they can't go to work. You ever see that?
Absolutely not, Hughes. Female wrestling these days is better than men's wrestling sometimes, if you ask me. If you go watch Charlotte, Sasha, Asuka, these females are actually getting the Kairi Sane. They get in the ring and they put on bar burners, Mr. Hughes. NXT just had one of their takeover shows, and the best match on the show was a females match.
Well, I'll tell you something, man. Since we on this subject here, we talking. I had to throw this in here. I'm gonna tell you something. The best lady wrestler, in my opinion, that I ever seen, as long as I've been here, over 50 odd years on this planet, is one woman in particular. Her name is Jazz. Jazz was a WWE Ladies Champion. She wrestled like a guy, but she still had that feminine twist to her. And I used to tell my students, lady students that I've trained, I tell them, if you want to learn how to wrestle, watch Jazz's matches. Jazz, very tough young lady. I mean, WWE picked up a good piece of talent when they got her. And she carried that ball pretty good. But, of course, we know how the business is. It still has a little discrimination in it when it comes to women. And so, I'm not going to go down that road too far. But I believe that, they could have did a lot more with Jazz. And, of course, she could have helped a lot of their young ladies as well in the business.
Exactly, Hughes. I didn't really watch Jazz too much because when I started watching wrestling, she had already been done with wrestling. But what do you think about someone like a Ronda Rousey coming over from UFC and how good? I don't know if you watched like her rise that year that from only wrestling for 1 year, the short amount of matches that she had, she really took a grasp of the business, kind of like Kurt Angle did.
Well, Ronda Rousey, I mean, you know, she was in another career, which was that MMA stuff, and I guess to keep the checks coming in, she jumped ship, realized she can make a little more money. That's the only reason why she got in this thing called professional wrestling. That's the reason why WWE picked her up. They figured she's a cash cow for a little while, and that's what it's all about. This is what it's all about these days when it comes to somebody jumping in from something else. You talking about Ronda Rousey? She was an MMA fighter, and her career was pretty much going down the tube. She was pretty much getting too old to be sitting there getting her face bashed in by an elbow, and she wanted some longevity. So that's the reason why she got in professional wrestling. Now, if she wouldn't have got in professional wrestling, Lord knows which way her career would have went. But as far as her, getting a push over these other young ladies, I don't think that's right. It's all about the dollar bill, man.
I don't think so, Mr. Hughes. She actually had a passion for this. She had the backing by Rowdy Piper. She was like really into learning this business, and that's how I think she became good so quick because she wasn't like lollygagging and dragging her feet about it. She was actually in the ring.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but she knows she had to pay these bills. See, so I'm pretty sure she has a good agent and all that good stuff, and she had made a name for herself. So why not get into a wrestling entertainment field, which is professional wrestling, and try to keep the checks coming in? Even though you're saying that she had a passion for being a professional wrestler. But the whole deal is she was an MMA fighter that was pretty much going down, getting old, so she needed to find another gig to pay those bills. I've been around a long time, AT, and I know what people do. You got to keep paying the bills. How are you going to do that? If you're not, say for instance, you tried that MMA stuff before, you wanted to jump in and out of that and professional wrestling. But you jump back in professional wrestling because you know that's where your freaking niche is. That's what you're good at, okay? Some people look at it different. They might not be good at it, but they got a name, so they'll get a check or two for that, for doing that. And I think that's what she got. That's what she's doing.
Okay, so with that said, there's a big like women's right movement going on in America. You know that. So with the amount of pressure that women are putting on men these days, and the way that the business is looking on TV now, that the women are doing like way better than the men, do you think that it's like a scarce going on of women forcing men to not be able to be men in the business?
Well, I mean, I don't think they're not forcing to be men. You're going to be a man, period. If you don't want to do that, you might have to get into to another profession. But the deal is, this whole business is catered to men anyway. So majority of the men that are running it is going to be ran by men. Now, to get young men to come to the shows, that's why they put women on the show. Now, I done seen women get added to shows all the time, and it's not because they can wrestle. It's because so they can get the young gentlemen to come in and buy a ticket. And if you get some young people in there to buy a ticket, they will buy a hot dog, they will buy some nachos, they will buy a beer, they will buy merchandise. So a woman's, even though it's a bad thing to say, but some people still use sex as far as the female anatomy to make money, to draw young people into a show. I see it all the time.
Exactly, Hughes. But I think it's because like you don't watch the current product like right now. It's just they are really heavily focused on the female wrestlers. Last year's WrestleMania being, I know that they had the backing and the star power of Ronda Rousey, but you also had guys like Brock Lesnar on that show that went like underneath of the main event, and it was actually like finally women's wrestling was the premiere.
Well, I mean, when you get these big shows, man, you got to put lady wrestlers on them. You got to, especially if they're on television. I mean, you got some gorgeous women on there. Tora Wilson. I mean, Sasha Banks. I mean, I can go on and on of all the gorgeous women that are in professional wrestling and that can wrestle. Some of them can't. Now, I'm going to be real with you. Some of those pretty girls can't wrestle. They just use them because they're pretty and people will tune in to watch them because they're in a bikini, period. I mean, I see it all the time. It ain't like when I was young watching wrestling, you really saw real ladies professional wrestling. Nowadays, when you watch this stuff, ladies are in the ring and they're doing things, and the camera guy must be in there eating popcorn or freaking his phone while they're doing something, and you can see that they go to hit somebody and they're freaking 5 miles away and the camera don't go to the other camera. I hate that. And they got girls in the ring wrestling, and some of them don't have no business in the ring. I'm pretty sure you see that sometime.
Yes, I do, Hughes. But if I take it back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast, they're bringing in actually women that can work and hiring athletes for men, not bringing in actual workers, wrestle workers. What do you think? How do you think that affects the business? Because if you're bringing in actually female workers and you're bringing in athletes, is that not a telltale sign of why women's wrestling is more prominent, like better workers?
Well, for example, like Flair's daughter, Charlotte. She's a great worker. I seen her in that ring. I seen her wrestling. When I first saw Charlotte in the ring working, I was like, oh yeah. She worked just like her father. She knows what she's doing in there. And I seen matches with girls just in there, doing a bunch of nothing with no psychology. Unbelievable stuff that they're doing. That's the difference where, if we sitting there watching a wrestling match and if I'm not seeing no wrestling holds being applied or no psychology and all I see is these girls trying to, flaunt their bodies around the ring and, body parts falling out and things of that nature, then that's not the kind of wrestling I want to see in the ladies' wrestling match. You follow me?
Yeah. But it wasn't really their fault. It's not what they was asking to do. I mean, it was what they were told to do. Like, I remember listening to, I think it was Michelle McCool and Melina. One of them was telling the story that they had went out there and they had a great match. They worked very good, and then when they got in the back, they got in trouble, and they said that they were wrestling like guys, and they did too good of a job.
Yeah, I see that. I hear that all the time. But here's the deal, man. Like I said, when you get to some promotions, they don't care if you can wrestle or not, especially if you're a good-looking chick. All they care about is you going out there, pulling each other's clothes off, exposing some body parts. That's what they're trying to do to cater to the young cats that came to buy a ticket, okay? Because next time they're going to try to book the same thing again to get those same guys back there. Man, that's what it's all about. That's what a lot of these guys, a lot of these promotions book these ladies on. Because I remember one time I was at the school, and a young lady, she joined the school, and she first thing she asked me was, because she was already doing shows, but she was saying that the guy that booked her, the promoter, said all he wanted her to do was have like cat fight matches where they just pulled each other's clothes off and exposed body parts, things of that nature. Didn't care about the wrestling part. And I was like, no, baby, hold it. You got to learn how to wrestle if you want some longevity here, instead of just, because whoever told her this told her a bunch of lies, and all they're using her for is her body, period. And so, what we're talking about here is ladies wrestling from past and present of today, and for ladies wrestling to be sustainable, there has to be good wrestling matches. Like I was talking about Charlotte, that knows how to wrestle. She talked to her dad. I don't know who trained her, but you can tell she got some Ric Flair blood in her, and she knows how to tell a story, and she knows how to work. Period. That's the most important thing, in my opinion.
Okay, Mr. Hughes, that's great. That's a great way to get into my next subject is how, and I know you could probably gonna elaborate a little more when Kiera actually gets on here. How do you go about training a female wrestler? How do you go about doing that?
It's the same as a male wrestler. Okay, you have to train them the same way. Just like I tell you back when you guys were training and girls were joining the school, I would tell y'all to, don't treat the girls like toilet paper. Train them, just like you was in the ring with a guy, so they can get the true, the real effect of either getting kicked, punched, stomped. They can get the real effect of it. And so, I had to train the girls the same way, even though they had different body parts that you did not want to touch. You just had to be careful and show them and teach them the way that they should be taught. And that's why Kiera Hogan, when that's why she's doing her thing right now, and she's been successful with it.
Okay, Hughes. So, do you think that it's more important that women work with men going into their training than actually training with a female?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think because they can get a true feeling. The gentleman, he's going to take her through some stuff more than a woman would in a match setting. So, with that said, it's much better for the female to train with the guys because she can get the true feeling of how it is in that ring during a real wrestling match. Now, if she is in a ring with another woman that hasn't had the experience of having matches yet, okay, she ain't gonna pick up anything. But if she's in the ring with a guy that already knows how to wrestle, he can pretty much take her through different things that she's going to need to do in that ring to get over, so to speak.
So a problem with that I would see when we used to train with Kiera a lot is she would be above and beyond training. I mean, when she used to get into matches with other females, because she was doing stuff with us, she was doing stuff with the men that she wouldn't be able to do with a female. So do you think that, I know that's what made Kiera so good, but do you think it teaches them a little bit too much?
No, of course not. You don't teach them too much. You want to try to teach them to where they can learn fast. That's the key right here. Learn fast and that it sticks in their minds, okay? Because sometimes the technique that you're showing some people, it don't stick. Go through one ear and out the other. It don't stick to the brain, whatever you're trying to teach them, see? And so, when I taught Kiera, I had used young other guys to go through her training with, even though we had Devin there, and Devin Nicole, she was there, and a couple other young ladies that I can't remember off the top of my head, but most of the time she worked with the guys, and the end result of all that was she got pretty good real fast. She had matches with you, some drag match she had with you. You took it to her. You showed her that, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to show you the real true way of how a wrestling match is really supposed to go down. And you gave her a taste of that. That's why when she started doing matches with other girls, other ladies, that she looked like she was laying her stuff in. She was looking good. She was believable. Period.
Yeah, exactly. He was me when I went over that match with Kiera. She was she was just coming out of a feud with Owen Knight, and I think they had their 3-round matches, and then she was going into to our project and she was so nervous. I remember how nervous she was, and I kept telling her that I was like, this is what you wanted. You want to be tested. Once I know that you're good enough to get out here and do this stuff, it's just your nerves are getting to you. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but eventually her nerves went away, and she started getting with it. Kiera was easy to train. I mean, she was. Even though a few times I had to encourage her to do certain things to make her game, her matches much better, and that's what she ended up doing. And so, the subject of today's podcast is about ladies professional wrestling, and we can go on a lot about this of all the different um, um, uh, great lady wrestlers that came up in the business pertaining to from managers to wrestlers. I was talking about Glow not too long ago about how Glow kind of changed the dynamics of professional wrestling. They were on TV for quite some time. Did you get a chance to watch Glow?
I didn't get to watch Glow, but they did reboot Glow. They did bring it back. It was a Netflix original. It was on Netflix. I never got a chance to watch it though.
Right, and so and with and with that, I mean, Glow is kind of like what WWF eventually started doing, which got out of the wrestling part and started doing the entertainment part. And Glow came along way before they actually started doing their thing. They still had good matches and all, but Glow kind of set the tone as far as the entertainment part of professional wrestling. And the girls that they had on there were pretty tough. I used to sit there and watch Glow all the time. The girls on there were pretty tough. They had different characters. Now here's the deal on that. I was talking about this, I think on the last podcast about, when people first walk out the freaking dressing room, you don't know who's who. You don't know who's the babyface, who's the heel. But in Glow Professional Wrestling, everyone had a freaking gimmick, okay? Everybody had a gimmick. Everybody had you knew what they was when they walked through the curtain. They gave them time in the back to cut their promos to establish what they are, who they are, so forth and so on. So different individuals had a little following in Glow. All right, I can't remember all of them, but I can remember when I was watching it. They had the farmer's daughter in there. They had this other lady. This I forgot her name. She was this big girl, and she used to just beat everybody up. I mean, she was like the heel of the company. And so as I went on and got into business and from watching the old days of professional wrestling with Mae Young and Medusa and all these other people, and saw the glamour part of it, because back in the day, these ladies was not glamorous like they are these days. Like now, women go to the ring, they got makeup on, their hair's done. There is not a anything out of place when they get in that ring. And some of them, like I said, some of them can wrestle and some of them can't. And so with that said, that's the thing that I'm trying to understand, and I hope the people understand that just because you're a pretty person don't mean you can be a wrestler.
Exactly, Hughes. So let's go back to actual training, female wrestlers. So you said it's good or better for women to train with men, but what about the vice versa? What do you think of intergender matches? Actual match, not training them, not training, as in a training setting. Women actually going out in the ring in front of fans and wrestling a grown man.
Well, you say intergender. I mean, you say a woman wrestling a man at a show. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes. Well, a actual woman versus an actual man in a match.
Well, I don't have nothing against that, because that's what we did at the WWE for. Kiera, she wrestled a lot of you guys. Devin, she wrestled a lot of you guys. So I don't have anything against a guy wrestling a girl. But here's the deal. That girl is going to learn more from wrestling a guy in the early stages of it than she would wrestling a girl, because the simple fact that most of the gentlemen in the business have been around longer than women anyway, and they know more holds, more moves, more psychology. So that helps that young lady pick up some knowledge herself. So that's why I prefer guys wrestling girls in the early stages of their career, man, so they can pick up stuff, so they can get the true feeling of how it feels in that ring to get kicked, to get stomped, to get punched, things like that.
I understand that, but I guess I'm more asking you the importance of a story that you tell when you're wrestling a female, because it's not just it's like a little guy wrestling a big guy. You're not just going out there and having a regular standard match. the importance of telling the proper story of when you're wrestling a female, because at the end of the day, you are wrestling. Like, it's a different kind of match.
But the whole objective is to get that match over. Even though you're out there wrestling a female, okay? You're trying to entertain these people with some professional wrestling. Even though it's a freaking female, don't matter. Okay? You're trying to showcase how talented this woman is. That's why she's in the ring with the male. You know, trying to see that her toughness and her and how, you know. I mean, I tell you, I see it. I don't see it as often as I used to see it. You didn't see it back in the old days, where women were, all you saw was women wrestling matches. That's it. You didn't see a man in the wrestling ring with a woman back in the old days. But then China come along, and that's when they start having matches like with men, with China, when she came into business, because her and Nicole Bass, they used to hang with the dudes in the ring as far as the wrestling goes. And so once that happened, I believe that China changed the dynamics of men wrestling women in the wrestling business.
So some of the most crazy female matches that I've ever seen are the Joshi Warriors. You know who they are? It's all female wrestlers in Japan. Japanese female wrestling is called Joshi. So those girls are crazy over there. Have you ever seen the Joshis wrestle?
No, I heard of them though, and I seen a couple of things on online with them, and yes, they are very tough. And now let me tell you this: now over in Japan, it's a little different on how we train over here and over there with their people. Over there, they train them a little harder than people train over here. Because I'm telling you, if they train people like they do over there would not be anybody in the gym to train, because everybody would leave or quit because they're not that tough. People over in Japan are very tough. The women are tough. The men are tough. And when I was there, when we did the Tokyo Dome, when I was in WCW, and they were training in the Tokyo Dome before the show. They had them running around the freaking inside of the Tokyo Dome. Okay, and then had them doing all this stuff for training. And let me tell you something. If it was in this country, like I said, it would not be anyone in that building to train, because everyone would quit and think they were being abused. Well, these women that train over in Japan, the gentlemen train the same way. They train them. It says, look at here. We're going to train you like this because we want you to be the best. It's just like the Olympics and all that stuff, man. They train their people to be the best. And so you're speaking about these women that are over in Japan and how tough they are. Yes, they are. They're very, very, very tough. That's why when they bring some over here, and they're like for Ring of Honor, or they do stuff with WWE, you know, you can tell the difference between those girls and the girls from Japan.
Exactly, because one of my favorite wrestlers right now, her name is Asuka, and she is a beast, dude. You would be amazed if you watched Asuka. So when you were coming up in the business, when you first started training, did you ever train with any females in particular?
No, I didn't. It was all gentlemen. At the time when I was training in Kansas City, there was no girls training with us. It's just all guys, see. And so there were girls already wrestling in the Central States, and so no, I didn't get to train up with no girls when I was coming up.
So do you have any idea of, okay, so when you first started wrestling, they didn't want you to know that it was a work, and you know the story. If you want to listen to how Mr. Hughes got into the business, you go back to listen to podcast number 1. This is podcast number 6, and we talking about female wrestling. So how exactly did you get into the business if you was a female back in the day?
Well, it's, like I said, it was very tough. Just like a guy, if you're a guy, because it was real sacred, man. I mean, back in the day, you couldn't get into business just like you do today. It was really, really, really hard. And if you didn't know anybody, they wouldn't smarten you up on how to get in it, okay? And so today, you know, anybody can be a wrestler. They just call somebody or hit somebody up on social media somewhere and say, I want to be a wrestler. You know anybody that can train me? Back then, when I was coming up, it wasn't like that, bro. If you didn't know nobody, you couldn't get trained. If you didn't know who to call or hook you up, you just wasn't getting in this business. That's how hard it used to be. That's why the business was so strong back then, because guys treated it like it was a freaking mob deal, and they didn't. It was a big secret on how to get in, if it was a work, the whole 9 yards. And today it's oversaturated with young people trying to be professional wrestlers. You done been on shows with me where guys don't have no business being in a building, or even much less in a dressing room, talking about having a freaking wrestling match, and then go out there and have a total abortion. I know you done had people that you wrestled that had no business being in that ring because they didn't get properly trained. They just was filler for the card, period.
Exactly, Hughes. And even at the school, like this was it was like it was a problem every now and then of when a female wrestler came in to train, and the men would be all over him. What is some problems that partake in when you're trying to date and wrestle at the same time?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, man. Very, very good question, man. That's the part that I really wanted to hammer down to. Guys that so-called date wrestlers in the business. That's a no-no, in my opinion. Why? Because, at the beginning, it's fun because you're traveling up and down the highway together. You're always together. You just together. But eventually, that kind of simmers down, see? After the infancy of it simmers down, then what do you have? Now, you already know what the person does on the road. Everybody knows what wrestlers do on the road. Single, married, or whatever. It don't matter. If you're on television, you're a hot potato. Everybody want to be with you. Everybody want to holler at you. All the women want to be with you. All the men want to be with you. Okay? I'm just being real with it. And I see people that get involved. They start a company. Next thing you know, they're dating. Next thing you know, they're sleeping together. Next thing you know, they're having kids together. Next thing you know, it falls apart. Why? Because eventually they run out of logs to put on the fire. Once the logs run out, then what else you got? You don't have anything. You start out with wrestling. Now your trust going out the window because they think every time you're up and down that highway, you're going to pull some rat from out the audience and go take her back to the hotel or vice versa. And so when it comes to wrestlers dating other wrestlers, I give that a no-no because it will not work out. I done seen it so many times where guys get with someone in the company, okay? They start dating. Next thing you know, it falls apart. Next thing you know, somebody gets hurt or somebody's property gets torn up. I see it all the time, AT. So in my opinion, no. Sometimes it might work out for some people. Some people get lucky. Okay, some people get lucky if they got some sustainability in that bank. That's what I'm talking about. If they got some money in the bank and they're not struggling no more and they can survive, hey, it might last a little longer than you think. But some people, it don't last, period.
So, Mr. Hughes, you telling me that you have never, ever been interested in no female wrestler that you've ever worked with?
I never said I was not interested. We talking about dating them.
I
We
know.
talking about messing around with them.
Exactly.
No, because I already know. I already know in my soul that that's not what you're supposed to do because it's not going to work out. How many times you been on the road up and down this highway and you go to a town and you happen to, all these pretty girls happen to come holler at you and next thing you know, you're in the room with them. Okay, so with that said, it don't matter if you married or got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever the case is. If you're on this road every night, everybody's not faithful, bro. I don't care what they say. Ooh, yeah, I love you, blah, 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 but everybody ain't faithful. Okay, so as far as the business goes, and you get in a relationship with someone in this business, okay, 9 times out of 10, it ain't gonna last. Period.
I know, Mr. Hughes. We had a couple great talent over at the WWE before they fell victim to some trainers, some of the girls that tried to come in there and train. Don't you think?
Well, there's a couple. You did that. I mean, just be real with you. You did the same thing and realized that it wasn't going to work out, and you kept it moving. Smart move, but you did go to the altar. But that's besides the point. But the smart thing to do is not to even go that route. People do it all the time. I used to see it all the time as a trainer, and a pretty girl might join, and next thing you know, this freaking, alpha male over here in the corner, man, and starts raising his tail up, the back of hair on his neck starts standing up, and he goes, there's some more prey over there, and go over there and try to holler at it. Next thing you know, he's got it in the back room somewhere. Well, I try to explain to these kids, we don't do that here. If that's something you want to do, you have to go get out this facility and go do that. And so, hey, whatever you did when you left the school, that was on you. But most of the time, guys went and noticed they started dating each other, but it never lasts.
Exactly, Hughes. It's just human nature. It's gonna happen.
No doubt about it. And so, back to ladies professional wrestling, we was talking about China and how she changed the dynamics of men wrestling women. And at first, people would see and be going, man, how in the world is she going to keep up with this dude? How is she going to keep up with this guy? Because I know she did a few matches with Jesse James, Jeff Jarrett. And the matches turned out to be great. And they did a lot of matches on Raw. They did a lot of matches on SmackDown. They did some matches on pay-per-views, things like that. But those matches got over because China, she knew what to do in that ring as a lady wrestler. Now today, I don't think there's anyone that I've seen in the WWE or any other company that can hang with a man if you're a woman. Okay, I know Kiera can do it because I saw her do it with you and Owen Knight and a few other people, AR Fox and people like that. So I know she can hold her own. But some people I haven't seen. I don't know if you've seen it or not in the WWE. If they even do women matches against men anymore? Have you seen that?
No, Hughes. It's frowned upon on the television for intergender matches right now.
And I don't understand why they're frowning about it because, like I said, it got over when China did it.
It's frowned upon because, society thinks that men should not be beating on women.
Yeah, but just think about it. Remember Nicole Bass, right? You remember Nicole, Lord rest her soul. You remember how big she was. You know how big China looked in that ring. So what's the big deal? Now they got these girls, these petite girls in there now. Like, that appears to be made out of toilet paper. Okay? So instead of them putting them in there with a wrestler like a Ziggler or somebody or Apollo Crews, they rather have them go against one another so they can keep that pretty look going on, see? Instead of them getting in there and having a match. I think, in my opinion, today's young ladies in the wrestling game, I don't think they can hang with a gentleman in that ring.
I don't know, Mr. Hughes. Oscar.
Unless they go to Japan.
Oscar, like I was saying, she's a beast, Mr. Hughes, and so is Charlotte.
Yeah, like I said, I mentioned Charlotte earlier. Charlotte's a great wrestler. Now, Charlotte, when I see her, she's very entertaining to watch. Now, I like watching Sasha and everybody else. I just refuse to go whatever.
You don't forget Ronda. Ronda's there. She can go with a dude. She did go with a dude. They did do an intergender match. Well, it was her first match against Triple H and Stephanie.
Well, I know. I remember her doing that match. She did a good job. She had a lot of practice. She worked out. She trained with them. So of course she's gonna make it good. Okay. They practiced and worked on that match for days and days and days and days. She better be good. Okay. Instead of just, she left out the MMA ring to get in the professional wrestling ring. So she had to get up to speed on a lot of stuff in professional wrestling. And that's what she did, man. That's why when she got in that ring and it looked like she knew what she was doing, she had a lot of quality time with Triple H training-wise to do what she needed to do in that ring so it looked believable. So it looked like she was a professional wrestler. Period.
Right. Kurt Angle was out there too. But who cares if they practice for days and days, Hughes? It was her first match. She was finna be in front of millions of people. It was something that had to happen.
Well, it was good for her. It was good for her. Kept them checks coming in. Period. That's what it's all about.
So would you rather practice your match for days and days and have it be good, or go out there and have an abortion because you guys didn't talk about anything prior and had no chemistry?
Well, she got signed. Okay?
Right.
She signed a deal. So she knew she had to do what it took to get this stuff over. Okay, instead of signing the deal and go sit down, she knew she had to practice this stuff because she hadn't been in the business long. So that was her job. Her obligation to do this and do it right. A lot was riding on it. A lot of money was invested in it. So she knew she had to go and do this and make sure that this match was perfect. And that's what she did. That's why I got over.
Exactly, Hughes. And I I think that we've elaborated and we talked a good enough amount on women's wrestling. I know we got a couple minutes left over. Then I just would like to say thank you for an awesome weekend. This weekend, taking me up to West Virginia with you.
What a great weekend we had. I had a good time. Got to see some old friends, Shane Douglas, Gary Wolf. I got to hang out with freaking New Jack. I mean, just incredible. I mean, just the list just goes on and on. Virgil, we had a ball. I tell you, I enjoy traveling on the road. I enjoy taking my students and teaching them the ropes of professional wrestling on the road and seeing this great country of ours, United States of America, folks. So if you don't have an opportunity, if you get an opportunity to go see the country, go see the country, folks. Don't just stay in one spot and then grow old and die and say you regret not getting out and seeing this world. Get out and see it. It don't cost that much to get on the highway and go see and visit, whatever. Just see how other states look. And that's what we do. When I go somewhere, Washington, D.C., I'll go check out the White House. I go check out the monuments. I go check out anything I can possibly see because I don't go up there often. And so if I'm that close, I'm going to go see it, period. Or if you're in Kansas City, go have some good old Kansas City barbecue, so forth and so on. And so with that said, AT, what a great conversation we had thus far about ladies professional wrestling. I hope we touched on as much as we could touch on for the knowledge that we had between both of us. And of course, like I said, we're going to have my guest later on in the second half of the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast, the girl on fire, the great Kiera Hogan. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to talking to her, AT.
Exactly, Mr. Hughes. I love Kiera. I remember when we first started training, and I invested a lot into making sure that she got her butt to practice and she got to training, and like I said, I love Kiera.
Well, and she's very impressive. She learned real fast. I mean, it wasn't hard to train her, and I'm looking forward to talking with her. I don't want to put too much out there at the beginning of this because I wanted y'all to hear from the horse's mouth her start and the genesis of her career and where she's going and her future future goals in professional wrestling. So with that said, AT, how can folks reach you?
Oh no, Mr. Hughes, we're not ending. I want you to talk about your movie experience that we had. You were so proud of.
Well, yeah, okay. I got a few more minutes, so I guess I'll go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit. I always wanted to see this movie. They've been advertising it. The Angel Has Fallen. They had been advertising it like crazy. And the guy one of the main stars in it that played in Law Abiding Citizen, I can't remember his name, but he's a good actor, and I like watching him act because he's a good actor. And when I saw that he was going to be in Law Abiding Citizen, I wanted to see that movie. And so when we went up to West Virginia last week, we did the show. The show ended kind of early, so we had time to go lay down and chill and relax and what have you. But the next morning I woke up and wanted to go see that movie. And they had an early bird special that started at 10:30 a.m. And so AT was still sleeping. I said, hey, man, time to get up. Let me go ahead and brush my teeth, say my prayers. We're going to see this movie, Angel Has Fallen. Now, it took a few minutes for him to get out of bed because I was about ready to go get some ice water and throw it at him so you can hear him get the ball rolling so we can go see this movie. Because I did not want to pay $12 to go see this movie. We got the early bird special, which was $6.50, which was not bad. Anyway, the movie, I got a big bucket of popcorn, something to drink, and we sat there, and the movie started to happen. Now, the movie didn't quite start at 10:30 because they had two people working, and I guess one of them had to run up and hit the button to turn the projector on, or whatever the case. But the end result was it was a great, great action-packed movie. Had me on my seat to the bitter end, folks. So if you haven't seen The Angel Has Fallen, go check it out, no doubt about it.
Well, was that the height of your weekend, Mr. Hughes, going to see that movie?
Very, very. I look forward to going, when I go on the road, I always look forward to having a good time, period. I don't know if y'all saw last week before, where I was on the road with SP the Ghost, and we stopped at Cracker Barrel, and I wanted to have me some fried chicken. Well, they didn't have fried chicken at the particular time, even though they've been advertising it on TV in Georgia and Carolinas and all over the place. And so once we got done in Charlotte at the gathering, I stopped there to get some chicken. And the lady said, we ain't serving it yet. And I was like, what? And I went on this tirade about why come you ain't got no chicken, blase, blase. And the result was I ended up having some meatloaf. But I originally went in there to get me some chicken. And from this point on, anytime I stop at a Cracker Barrel, before I even sit down, I'm going to make sure that they have fried chicken at that location.
Definitely, Hughes. I'm actually looking forward to Dragon Con for the second year in a row.
No doubt about it. Dragon Con will happen this Thursday, August 29th at the Hyatt Regency. If you're going to be down at the Dragon Con, come on through. I think it starts about 6 p.m. on Thursday. I will be in action, folks. Come on down to the Dragon Con. Come by my merchandise table, get a picture, get an autograph, and come tell Mr. Hughes how you feel about growing up watching Mr. Hughes. I always enjoy talking to the fans, no doubt about it.
Telling you, Mr. Hughes, you are the plug, because I've, like, a lot of these states that I've been to for the first time is all because of you, getting in the car, traveling, learning from the business. And then last year, you actually brought me over to Dragon Con for the first time, and I didn't know how crazy it was over there, man. Those costumes that they make are ridiculous. Like, while you guys were out there, I went and walked around, and it actually spans like throughout different hotels, and you can.
Oh yeah, it's a big deal, and I look forward to doing it every year. Most of the time, it's people with their costumes on. Not many, you would say, wrestling fans, but they pack in to watch the wrestling, and so they come by and support the wrestling, and that's why I enjoy doing it. And I'm looking forward to being at the Hyatt in Atlanta, Georgia for Dragon Con 2019.
With that said, Mr. Hughes, I think it's time to bring in the girl on fire.
No doubt about it, folks. Thanks for listening to the first part of Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast. My co-host, the ATLien. At the end of our podcast, we will give you our social media platforms that you can find us on, as well as Kiera Hogan. So folks, with that said, we'll be right back with the girl on fire, Kiera Hogan. Don't you dare go away. All right, folks, Total Protection Mr. Hughes back with you for our second half of the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast. I told you, folks, we got a special guest, and that special guest is the girl on fire, lady on fire, Kiera Hogan. Kiera Hogan, folks, is tearing it up in the world of professional wrestling. Trainer, she was a great professional wrestler. She got in there deep with the gentleman there at the WWA4 and learned how to do this stuff. And she's a very tough individual, no doubt about it. So without any further ado, we're going to get the genesis of Kiera Hogan and how she got started. And I know a lot of you fans would like to know how she got started and what inspired her to be a professional wrestler, just like the previous podcast when I talked to SP the Ghost, Prince Apollo, and Odinson. And of course, they all had a person that inspired them to want to become a professional wrestler, just like myself, Harley Race wrestler. So it was the person that inspired me to want to be a professional wrestler, and I learned a lot from him. And I got to the top by listening to his wisdom and his knowledge. So with any further ado, we're going to welcome that girl on fire, Kiera Hogan. Kiera Hogan, what's cracking, girl?
What's good, Mr. Hughes?
Well, I'll tell you, honey, you out there tearing it up in the wrestling business, but we're going to get down to that in a minute. But I'm pretty sure the fans would like to know how or what individual inspired you to want to be a professional wrestler. When I was a kid, man, Harley Race was the man for me. Who was it for you?
Mickie James was the woman for me. Mickie James inspired me to be a professional wrestler. She definitely was the one person that really stood out to me when I was growing up. She, just had a big inspiration on how I acted and my personality and just everything that I did. She just inspired me to be better and never give up and, just continue fighting on for my ultimate goal and dream.
Well, you say Mickie James, man. I mean, she's a talented lady wrestler, no doubt about it. And, out of all the other great lady wrestlers, apparently she was the one that got your attention. So when you saw that, Mickey James, you was watching her, you was, inspired by what she was doing in the ring to make you say, hey, this is what I want to do. What did you do prior to, becoming or wanting to be a professional wrestler? Where'd you work? I mean, because most people work there, somewhere to accumulate the money to decide wherever he was going to pay to go. What'd you work at as a young person?
I worked at a couple places. When I first started training, I worked at a Mexican restaurant that I used to have to drive from downtown, midtown Atlanta, all the way to A4 for training. And I worked at PetSmart, and then I worked at a restaurant called Twin Peaks. So I had a few places that I worked at before I started training, and just helping me out money, with traveling and being on the road and stuff. So I worked a few different places.
Yeah, well, that's how, I like to get this thing started, because a lot of people like to know, because some people come from families that have money already, and, their family might pay the bill for them. And sometimes some people have to work hard to accumulate the money to go to the school where you end up going, which was WWA4. And so Mickey James was the one that inspired you to be a wrestler. So how did you find or go about looking for wrestling schools? Who told you about the WWA4?
That's actually a funny story. So, in high school, I was on Twitter, and I had a group of people that I talked to that were wrestling fans that wanted to be wrestlers. And actually, a couple of those people actually ended up going to A4, and we all found A4 mutually. I Googled wrestling schools in Atlanta because I was already in Atlanta, and then A4 was the first one. Literally, I Googled it, and A4 was the first one to pop up, and I clicked it, and I was like, okay, and I sent in the little aspiring wrestlers page and stuff, and I got the home videos and stuff. So I literally Googled it, and it was the first one to pop up. But I found people on Twitter that were mutually wanting to go to A4, and we ended up going to A4 together and training.
So you say going to WWA4 together. Did you come to any shows first before you actually came and said, hey, I want to be at this particular school? I mean, did you, because we did shows every Thursday. Mm-hmm. So did you come and check it out first to make sure it was legit, even though it popped up on the internet when you first typed in the best school in the world? I mean, how did it work?
Well, I did. I came to one of the shows first, yes. I went to one of the shows right out of high school. Literally, I was fresh out of high school. I just graduated. And I went to the show, and I literally fell in love. And I was like, this is where I want to come train. This is where I want to be. Lo and behold, that's where my heart was set.
Well, I'll tell you what, you made the greatest decision of your life, no doubt about it. So were there any other girls that were there prior to you coming that you would look at and see how good they were? Because these are the girls you were going to be training with. So I was wondering if you did see that. Did you see any other girls that were that appeared to be good lady wrestlers?
Yeah. At the time, there were 2, I believe. And I actually met one on Facebook, and she helped me, Devin Nicole. And she messaged me on Facebook, and I told her I wanted to come to A4 and train, and I told her I couldn't wait to wrestle her and stuff. But, by the time I ended up training, she was already gone. So when I actually was training, no, there were no girls.
Well, I'll tell you something, Devin, I mean, she was pretty talented. She came to the WWA4. She was hungry like you were, and, I was kind of happy. Once you guys got together and started working out together, but we'll get to that in a minute. So you went to some shows. You saw Devin Nicole, and he's like, man, if she wrestles like that, I'm gonna try to be better than her. And so how did you come up with the money to because it's 990 big ones. That's a lot of bread for a young person to come up with. So did you work hard to come up with that, or did you borrow it from a family member? How did you get your money to come to the school?
I don't even think you know this story, Hughes, because you actually had a part in this. You had a part in me being able to train. I don't know if you remember this, but I specifically remember the moment. Well, first you asked me, did I want to be an announcer in a backstage interview? Because you're like, oh yeah, you're a cute girl. You want to be a backstage? And I was like, sure, why not? Even though I didn't have the intention of doing it, I was just like, that's a way to like get into the business, and and I started doing it on the indies. And then I remember one day, we were like everybody was training or something, and I was like, man, I really want to get in the ring. I hadn't started training yet. I really wanted to get in the ring, but I could not afford to get in the ring because I was still working and going to school at the time and going behind my parents' back to go to training, by the way. And literally you were like, well, oh, you want to be in the ring and be a wrestler? I didn't know that. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a wrestler. He was like, just get some shoes and get in the ring. And I was like, okay. And from then on, you just let me train. Like,
well, I'll tell you the story behind that. Frank, the owner, he always wanted girls to come to the school, because the more girls we had that could wrestle, it looked good on internet. When we did shows, we had girls involved. I don't care if they were commentating, announcing, whatever. If you was involved, then other girls would see that, hey, I can go down here and do whatever I need to do to get in the business. And so Frank was like, well, we won't worry about her paying right now. I was like, well, I think that's a good idea. I got blessed not to pay. I mean, why not? So you got blessed to get in the business like yours truly did without having to pay. All right, so you got you got the shoes, you put your shoes on, you got in the ring, and you started doing some stuff. The first thing I showed you was hitting the ropes. Tell us about the very first thing I showed you, hitting them ropes. Tell us about it.
I was too short, because usually that is how wrestling rings are, because I'm 4'11", so literally the ropes were too big. And then you suggested, because Gresham hit the ropes sometimes on the middle, like Rey Mysterio does, and maybe I should do the middle rope, but I wasn't comfortable. I wanted to run the ropes like normal people, because I'm a normal person too, even though I'm short. So I mean, it was weird. Like, I couldn't get the hang of it. I couldn't get a hang of a lot of stuff when I first started. Like, it took a while. Like, headlock takeovers took me a while to get. It took me a while.
But once you got going, I mean, you got going. I mean, you got in the ring with the guys, because I told all the guys, because most of the time you did train with other guys, and I told the other guys, do not treat her like toilet paper. Why? Because I wanted her to get the true feeling of what it feels like to be in the ring with a person that's taking you through a match. If they treat you like a girl and like toilet paper and barely hit you and touch you and kick you and stomp on you, you're not going to get the true feeling how to sell. So I always had you go in the ring with somebody, either it was ATLien or someone, to help you get over that hump of feeling how it was to be in that ring. So we showed you how to hit the ropes. Then we got to the part about locking up. Now, explain to me, because you was kind of short there, like Jonathan Gresham, and most everybody was taller than you. So how did you adapt to different sized people you was locking up with?
Well, first off, like you said, a lot of people were really like soft with me. Like, people didn't want to hit me. People didn't want to give me anything. I had to tell people most of the time, like, you can hit me. Like, it's okay. Like, I want you. Even now, to this day, I tell people, if I don't feel it, I'm not going to sell for you, like, obviously. But, I mean, I just had to adjust to people's size like I always do. You told me I could jump into it, I could step into it a little harder, and I think that's helped me a lot along the way, because I have a pretty strong lockup, I think. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, and so which you just said something that I had to elaborate a little bit on, and what I said earlier about guys not treating you like toilet paper. And so, with that said, man, you took once you got trained and we started doing shows, you started taking some butt whippings out there from the ATLien and a few other people. I was wanting to know, did you ever get your receipt back from what he did to you at that match? I mean, it's on YouTube right now, folks. But we're going to get back to talking to Kiera about that particular subject. But I wanted to ask her, did she ever get a receipt back? A receipt is something when somebody tear to you, and you get your get back. So I'm just asking her that. Then we're going to continue her journey. What do you say about that?
I did not get my receipt from ATLien in particular. In particular, I did not. But if you ever want to wrestle me again to this day, I would definitely get all my receipts in.
Yeah, you better, because if not, it's gonna haunt you for forever and ever and ever and ever. Now, so we started training, man. Now let's get to the part about the taking the bumps. Like like the ATLien was saying when he was hitting the ropes, his back was sore. Apollo said the same thing about the ropes hurt their back and they were sore. So when I started showing you to take the bumps, was you in fear a little bit, or were you just like, oh man, this is starting to get serious?
The first bump I took, I was terrified, like absolutely terrified, because I literally I thought like in this moment, if I didn't like what I was feeling, I wasn't gonna do it. I knew in that moment, if I bumped and I didn't like how I felt, I was going to walk out. So, literally, when I took that first bump and I was like, it's not that bad.
Right. And when you did it like that, I was like, oh, she's got it. She's got it. And so we had drills that we worked on those things. Because we had people that just could not take a back bump to save their life. But then I used to have you do certain things to make them feel bad. You remember that? I said, Kiera, do this bump right here.
Oh, yeah.
Because this guy's big as hell and he can't even take a freaking back bump or anything. So I kind of used you to show them up to try to make them get it in gear. So was you sore after taking bumps like,
Yes. All the time still. Like, bumps are one of the most important things in wrestling, but one of the most painful because we have to go through it. Like, it's something we have to go through. And, like that first couple bumps, your body has to get used to it. It has to, like, pretty much accumulate to that and accumulating to you learning how to fall correctly. So, I mean, I was in pain, but,
But you got through it. I mean, you was a tough young lady, no doubt about it. And so training went on, and then we did promos. We started to learn how to do promos. I taught you how to do promos on Wednesday. So when we got to the part about the promos, see, how'd you feel about that, the promos?
I was super comfortable doing promos. One, because I was already comfortable in front of the camera from being the announcer and the backstage interviewer and doing all this stuff on the indies in front of the camera. So I was pretty comfortable talking in front of the camera. I did, however, have kind of trouble slowing down because I had so much that I wanted to say and couldn't slow it down. But I love promo classes, was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, I noticed, and also too, that's why I wanted you to be involved more behind the scenes as far as the videos and the promos and the commentary that we did, because I said, well, she has a natural at this on top of training too, as far as to be a wrestler as well. You know how to talk, and that's why as time went on, we got you a little deeper as far as what you were doing as far as the general manager support and so on. So the training was going on. You was learning how to do promos. I mean, you were, it came to the part where I wanted to show you how to do drop kicks. You remember that? Yes. The drop kicks. And I was explaining to you how important it was that women drop kick in their matches, and be specific about it, kick you in the head. Because a lot of times guys do drop kicks and they kick you in the body, and no psychology, you can't sell that. But I explained to you drop kicks in the head, and I'll tell you, you got it. I mean, like, once you got over the hump of jumping during the vertical and then extending your legs sideways to the man's skull and then landing safely, on your hands and your knees, in your belly, you figured it out. So when you started doing these drop kicks, what was going through your mind?
I was scared, obviously. Like you said, I could not get the hang of me jumping up and kicking my legs out at the same time. Like, that, for some reason, just did not click with me. So it took me forever. It took me a lot of tries. I was there for a while. I don't even think I got it. Like, when I started getting it, I still wasn't exactly getting it how I wanted to get it. But, like, it took me a while to finally understand, like, the motion of it and how it was affected, and now it's literally something I do in every single match.
And I'll tell you something, Jonathan Gresham does it. All my students that I've trained do it the way I taught them and explain them the psychology part of doing the drop kick correctly. Now, you did it. I mean, I've seen stuff online, pictures that they took of you doing matches online in Impact, and you're right in the person's face. Right, like he got taught. And so that's what this whole interview is about, folks, is about my former trainees that are out there in the world of professional wrestling that started from nothing and on their way to something. And so we got the drop kicks out the way. Then we started doing flying cross bodies. Now, even though the top rope was almost taller than you, when we did the flying cross bodies, I had y'all go through the whole ball of wax as far as the flying cross bodies go. Wasn't just one cross body. It was all of them in the whole setting. Even from flying over the top turnbuckle, or flying over the rope, or flying out of a spot. That's how we, or out of the corner. All these flying cross bodies. How did you feel about all this?
Well, like you said, the rope was taller than me, so this was something I was deathly afraid of. And I was hoping, even though with my size, I knew I was going to have to eventually get up there and conquer that little fear of getting to the top rope or doing that crossbody or getting off my feet. Because I'm literally a jumping shrimp. I jump in all of my matches. I'm literally always off my feet. So, like, to actually conquer that and, like, to get over the fear of just getting up there and trusting somebody to catch you, it literally was scary first learning it, and obviously it was hard. It was something that I had to get the hang of.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that I use all the time now, and I, have gotten over that fear.
Well, I tell you, I mean, and when I see you out there performing, it brings joy to my soul when I say, man, that girl is really doing her thing out there. So we did the flying cross bodies, we did the drop kicks. Here comes the sunset flips. Now I know that sunset flip, you was kind of leery on doing those, but you eventually did it after a few times someone showing you, and you got the courage. Now that's the key word, the courage to do this stuff. And let's let the fans know what was going on through your mind when it came your time to do a sunset flip, compared to being in the ring with Navy Blue, which is a 6'7" dude, and he's going for the backdrop, and you got to dive over this guy. Explain to us how you was feeling when we got to the part about showing you how to do a sunset flip.
All of these wrestling moves that I had trouble, like, conquering all had to do with me just understanding the mechanics and the movement, because I have to know every inch, like, what body part moves it where? How do you do this? Where does my hand go? Where does my foot go? How far do I jump? It was all about me conquering, like, just the movement and the mechanics of all the moves. Like, the sunset flip, I think I got stuck a few times. Like, I think I literally just kind of flopped on top of the person. But eventually, like, I got it, I understood it, and I was like, okay, my hands go here. Okay, this is how I do it. Now I get it.
Yeah.
It just takes me time to, like, understand the mechanics of the move before I get it.
But once you got it, honey, you look like a total professional with it. That's the key here.
Do it all the time.
It seemed like everything I was showing you, you were picking it up. Even with the punches, the forearms, the clotheslines, all that stuff. As a small person, you were landing it pretty good. So when we get to the clotheslines and the forearm smashes, did you already have a clear picture on how to do this, or what you wasn't worried about hurting the guys, was you?
No, because I didn't want them to be afraid to hurt me. If I'm not afraid to hurt you, I feel like you shouldn't be afraid to hurt me. That's the trust that I had in, like, all of my A4 family that I had. We all trusted each other enough to be able to train and be the best and do what we needed to do, and, just be able to, like, better each other. So we're okay with hurting each other and making mistakes and apologizing about it later. That's what training is, like, just making mistakes and then moving on and getting better and growing and evolving as a professional and as an entertainer and as an athlete. Like, it's just about, the growth.
No doubt about it. Now, it appears to me, when I was training you, it appeared that you was kind of flexible. And so we did super kicks at the school, and I noticed that you were working on those too. So tell us about the super kicks. Did you like those, or explain us to me and ATLien and all these fans listening, explain to us about that super kick that I saw you do a few times.
My super kick started at a very low place. It has come very, 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 very far from where it started. I was terrified of kicking anybody in the face, let alone somebody that's like, hey, kick me in the face 20 times until you get it right. But, I mean, in the long run, like, it helped me. And like I said, I've come very, very far, like, as far as, like, me kicking in general has become an essential part of my moveset now. And I don't have any type of, like, Taekwondo or martial arts background. It's just me learning how to do things and me just teaching myself how to do certain things, like kicking safely. And it's just like I said, I just came from a very low place when I learned how to do super kicks. I was terrified of kicking somebody in the face, and like I said, the idea of just hurting somebody, even though I don't mean to, but it's a match, so it's okay. You apologize later, but I got the hang of it, and it was funny the first few ones that I did because I was scared and I was but it's come very far.
Well, so yeah, but since you got that in and you started doing all these amazing things, I was like, man, what else can she do, right? So you started. So I had you in the ring now, even though I was showing you individual things and moves and things like that. Eventually, I had you get in the ring with somebody, and I was taking you through different things to do. And I can see that when the guy would get in the ring with you, as far as like he put a headlock on you, he wouldn't put it on like it looked believable. So I had to stop him, and I said, hey man, do the headlock like this. You're not going to hurt this girl. If she was like made of toilet paper, she wouldn't be in the building, right? And so once I told them that, then they started getting it in gear, and I noticed that they were starting to get a little more firm with you, and you started getting it in gear. So long story short, now you're starting to do matches now. I'm talking about in the ring matches, not shows in front of me. I'm taking you through how to do a match, okay? When you started getting that feeling of, man, I'm starting to seem like I'm a wrestler now. Explain to us how you felt with that. When you started seeing that, oh man, I'm almost there. How'd you feel?
I'm clenching my chest because I remember us having to have a journal that we had to write down all of the stuff that we learned. I still have mine, and I remember literally writing down the first spot that I learned how to do, and I was so happy. Like, I cannot explain to you how happy I actually was learning my first spot and being able to like call it and do it over and over again, because I felt like I was like actually like putting together everything that I learned, and it was coming together, and I felt like I was like learning and growing, and I'm like, oh my god, this is exciting. Like, now I feel like I'm getting further along, like being able to put together so many moves into spots now.
Well, that's the key right there. When I tell people about training, Jonathan Gresham calls me sometime, get some information on how to teach. Now, just because you wrestle don't mean you can teach people. You have to have some experience. It takes time to teach someone how to do things. And so with that said, we got to the point of taking you through different types of wrestling, so you can understand how to tell a story, so you can understand psychology. Okay, once we got past that part, and we got to the part about and we started doing promos. We're gonna get back to that, and you start doing promos in the back. I was like, man, she cut some good promos, and so. Prior to you coming to the school, did you have any kind of experience, like, in the media or something, as far as talking in front of people or something? Because it seemed like it came natural to you.
I used to film YouTube videos in my room by myself. That's literally the only experience I had, was just talking in front of a camera. I used to cut promos by myself in the mirror, like, before I even started training, because I knew I wanted to be a wrestler, so I knew that was something I had to get comfortable. I literally used to steal my mother's iPad and record videos, and then record promos, and then cut them with like music and stuff like it was real, because I literally wanted it to be, I just wanted to feel as realistic as possible. So I would cut promos about anything. Like,
so you had some early practice at this stuff, because I kind of figured, I said, man, this girl, she knows how to do, she got this from somewhere. She had some kind of training in front of a camera, because because some girls come in there, man, they're so shy, you'd be like, it ain't gonna work out for you. But you kind of took it in stride, and I was glad of that, because it made my job easier, because through the process of me continually training you, I added you to the shows earlier than you thought. So when I told you that you were going to be involved in the show, working with me, what did you think about that?
I was excited because I knew, like, again, this was just part of the growth, and I knew getting to be a part of the Thursday show at A4 is a very big deal. Like, it's literally like graduating. It's like being able to show what you've learned in training, and I love that about A4, is that we were able to train 3, 4 days, 3, 4, 5 days a week, even when the school was open on the weekends, to be able to show everything that we learned how to do. And we had literally live practice, and that's the best practice you can get. It's not training with 50 people in the ring. It's putting what you learned to good use and seeing if it works, and getting the criticism and learning and getting the experience and learning the mistakes and learning the timing and learning the camera angles and learning. It's all about that live experience that gives, I feel like, everybody that growth, because that's what it is. We have to learn how to work live. We have to learn how to work in front of a real live audience.
Perfect example of what I taught you, because that is exactly how I explained and told you how this all works. And apparently it's stuck. And it appears that you got a gig out to deal, but we ain't there yet. So I decided to add you to the show now. So now you're the general manager of the WWA 4. Now the general manager, folks, if y'all don't know what that means, is the person that's supposed to be over everything. But it's all a charade or charade, or however that word you want to use. It's all a work. But being that she was talented on the mic, I let the people get a taste of her, because eventually she was going to start wrestling. All right, so we got that going. Now we get to the part about you having your time comes, and I asked you. I said, "Are you ready to graduate to the 5-minute match so you can start doing shows?" What was on your mind, and tell me about it.
I was scared. I was so scared. I just wanted to pass because I knew you were looking for so many different things, and I just wanted to make sure that everything that I did was right so that I could pass. I just wanted to pass. Like, as long as I passed, I was like, okay, if I can get through this, I can get through my match. Like, I knew how serious it was. Like I said, getting in the 5-minute match and then getting into the show. Like, I knew this was like a big test, again, to put everything that I've learned to use. All those practice matches that I had with all my A4 family, teaching me how to do all these different things and all these finishes and all these crazy moves, but like to be able to finally put all that stuff to good use and like finally graduate to the show was like a huge accomplishment. And I had a lot of special guests in the crowd for my 5-minute match, which made it even better.
Special guests like who? Tell us about it.
I know Ethan Case was there, Elijah Evans was there, who else? It was just, I feel like there was just so many different people there, just there like to train, but didn't know that it would be my 5-minute match, and then for everybody to be so excited and congratulating me that I passed, and like so many people were there to see that first moment for me. So it was just
so you had some people that were following you that was looking forward to you passing that 5-minute match. You say you had some people come to support you, which is great. And so when you had that 5-minute match, do you remember what individual that you did that 5-minute match with, and what happened at the finish of the match?
I have my 5-minute match still on my computer, so I still go back and watch it. My 5-minute match was with Owen Knight, the master of the 5-minute matches.
Owen Knight, no doubt about it. We always talk about Owen Knight. He's, like I said, he's the guy that I went to, my go-to guy for the 5-minute matches, because he knew exactly what I was looking for. A few people tried it, but they didn't do it right. I asked a few people to do it, but they just didn't do it the way I wanted them to do it. Owen did it exactly the way I do it. That's why a lot of people pass. Mm-hmm. So when he worked with you, I pretty much told him, in the back, man, wrestle this girl like a dude, man, because I really want her to pass so she can get on to the show. She's ready. And so besides you just doing, working on the mic and things like that, I want you to actually get in the ring, because people was coming to check you out. They really wanted to see what you could do in that ring. And so when you had that 5-minute match and it was all over, the finish happened and it was all over. And when we were at the show after the matches, we had the thumbs up. You pass, thumbs up. You got to go back to the drawing board. And I always let the guys determine how they, how everything went down. But in the back of my mind, I already knew if you passed or not. So when you came to that part, and I put it in the students' hands, how was you feeling at the time?
I just hope everybody liked it, and I hope everybody was gonna help me pass. Cause like I said, I just wanted to pass so bad. I was so nervous, and I was thinking about it so hard. I was in the back overthinking it so hard, and I was like, I'm gonna mess up something. I'm gonna forget, and then Hughes isn't gonna pass me, and my life is gonna be over. Like, I just wanted to pass and to just get that, like I said, that approval from everybody that was there, and then of course you finally giving me the chance, chance.
So like I asked all my other guests on the show, that question: how many times did it take you to pass? 1, 2, 3, or did you get it on the first shot?
Just one time.
Well, I'll tell you. See, if you get it on one time, that means you understood. Because let me explain a little bit so people can understand what the 5 minute is. The 5 minute match, folks, is a determination if you're ready for the next level. The next level is to do shows that we did on Thursday. That means you're ready to wrestle. That means you graduated. That means you're ready to rock and roll and start your journey on your career, okay? Some people started a journey, but they still in the journey. They ain't quite getting out the journey. They just stuck, okay? But, I mean, you know, you had your 5 minute match. You passed. You were happy. You celebrated. The champagnes and the balloons and the firecrackers went off, right?
I don't know about all that.
Now it's time to get down to business. Now it's time to come up with a gimmick, right? How are you going to be introduced as? How did you get into the show? How was you introduced to the WWA shows on Thursday?
So, like you said, I was the general manager. I didn't actually have a gimmick because my whole idea behind me keeping my name was when you go back and like look me up, you can see where I started. You can literally look me up and see when I was an announcer and when I was an interviewer in my first match. You can literally trail me by one name, so you can literally see my full evolution and growth. And you know, I didn't have an initial gimmick just coming into it. Like, I was just Kiera Hogan. I was the general manager. And then, you know, I was, like, the bad version of myself. But, like, the Girl on Fire gimmick actually came from after my first match. I got into this mindset about not coming to training and not going to the gym and not lifting and I was just like, you know, I got my first match and I had it and it was cool. Now I don't have to do anything and I'm Gucci. I'm ready to go. I can do it. Like, I don't need this anymore. And, you know, Owen pulled me to the side and he was like, you know, you need to, like, get that chip off your shoulder. You still got to come in here and train and get better and grow and, you know, you need to find that fire. That was it.
And that was it.
That was all it
So that's how you came up with, so is that how you came up with the name?
That literally,
just like that.
Just like that. The Girl on Fire. I was like,
okay.
Fire is passion. Fire is determination. Fire is that one thing that burns, like that literally fuels everything. Fire, if anything is on fire, it's hot, it's hip, it's new, it's there, it's loud, it's in your face. I wanted to be that fire. I wanted to show my passion. I wanted to show that this is what I wanted to do, and that's why I'm the Girl on Fire, because I have that passion burning inside me. And
So when you decided you wanted to be the Girl on Fire, did you already have in your mind what kind of tights, the outfit, how your hair was going to look, all that? Tell us about that.
I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I dyed my hair red, it was literally because I wanted my hair to be red. I watched a lot of wrestling growing up, and, you know, Lita was one of my favorite wrestlers. She was a redhead. Christy Hemme was one of my favorite wrestlers. She was a redhead. So it just kind of was like, oh, the redheads are the cool girls. They're different. They're edgy. They're bubbly. They have these crazy personalities. I want to be a crazy redhead. Like, I just wanted to have red hair. And, like, when I finally became the Girl on Fire, it actually came from, like, my hairstylist saying, you know, you should put some orange in your hair, like fire. And I was like, true, let's do that. And literally it just started from one person, like, adding me into it, and then it slowly emerged into the yellow and the crazy, like, different colors. So it just, as a character, I think I've evolved a lot, especially now. Like, I just think the more I experimented with my image, the better it got.
No doubt about it. And I tell you, man, you know, because when you came out, once you decided to put, and you got that gimmick together, here's the key thing, people, that I say about young people that don't invest in their character. They don't invest in the gear. They just, you know, get some tights and some kick pads and call themselves a wrestler. This young lady invested in her character. She's a girl on fire. Her hair looks like fire. She's got the fire emblems on her outfit, the whole 9 yards. So when she walks out to that ring, the fans are seeing this professional, folks, and that's what I was trying to produce at the WWA 4. Now, after you started doing shows on Thursday, man, we rocking and we rolling. Now it's time to you graduated to outside of the school shows, and I used to take y'all on shows. I got booked. I got y'all booked. Now, explain to the people your very first paid gig. Everybody likes to know, you know, how was that? How was that? Who'd you work? Where was it at? Tell everybody what happened with that deal.
So actually, like I said, my 5-minute match, I asked you, I was like, please, Hughes, give me this 5-minute match. I'm ready to go to the Indies. Like, that's what I remember telling you. I was like, I'm ready to go to the Indies. This company wants me to have my first match, but I have to have my match at A4 first. Like, I knew that's what I had to do. I knew I had to have my A4 match first before I could go to the Indies, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do the Indies first. So, I got my 5-minute match. I had my first couple of matches at A4. And then, Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment, AWE, I was working with them as Owen Knight's manager because I wasn't wrestling yet, and they asked me when I would be ready to have my first match because my best friend Priscilla Kelly had started wrestling, and they needed an Atlanta homegrown girl to wrestle her. So they were like, when are you gonna be ready? And after I wrestled at A4 and had a couple matches, I was like, hey, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to have my first match.
And so we did that, and so you had your first match outside the school. You remember where it was at? What town?
It was in Atlanta. It was at the Masquerade, at the old Masquerade, like the old one. And we were on the bottom level called Hill, and I wrestled Dementia the Rose as my first match.
Dementia, I trained her as well.
Dementia?
Yes, I did. I trained her as well, and she turned out to be all right. She does a different type of style than you do, but yeah, I trained her as well. And so now you're doing outside shows now. The ball is rolling, the ship is rolling, the train is on high speed now. You're going all over the country. You're doing shows now. All of a sudden, you got your social media going. I mean, everybody's starting to know who Kiera Hogan Girl on Fire is, right? So you had a gig. You got a gig, a big gig with Impact. We're gonna get there now because you went from WWA4 and then doing indie shows, but you learned real fast. You got the knowledge of the game real quick. So it didn't seem like you were moving slow. You were on the right track. You were learning all the things you needed to learn to keep going to the next level of professional wrestling, which you were doing. And so now you have opportunity. You're doing Fan Fest. I mean, everybody's knowing who Kiera Hogan is. And all of a sudden you get a gig with Impact. Tell us about that.
So Impact was based in Florida at the time, and they were scouting for Knockouts Knockdown. And I guess Gail Kim and Jeremy Borash were at a Shine show in Tampa, Florida for Shine, and they were scouting. And it was actually the night that I hurt my shoulder. I had to go to New Jersey the next day and defend my WSU Spirit title. And instead of me, and actually after the Spirit title defense that I had WWE extra spot the next couple of days. And at those extra spots, Jeremy Borash sent me a message on Twitter, and he said, hey, I saw your injury. Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I did my title match. It's all good. And he was like, oh, well, I want to send your information into for, like, the knockouts. And I was like, oh, really? He was like, yes. He was like, do you have any obligations with anybody else? Like, WWE, are you doing the Mae Young Classic? And I was like, nope, nobody's contacted me about anything. I was like, go ahead and send my stuff in. And he was like, all right. And literally maybe a week after that, Scott D'Amore called my phone and offered me a contract.
Unbelievable. I'll tell you, that was how did you feel when you got that call?
I was at the dog park. I will never forget this. I was at the dog park with my friend Desiree, and we were walking our dogs, and I saw a number was calling me. I was like, I don't know whose number that is, so I'm gonna let it go to voicemail. So I was like, oh, it went to voicemail, but they left a voicemail. So I answered, I listened to the voicemail, and it was like, hey, this is Scott D'Amore with Impact Wrestling. I was like,
so you thought it was a rib, huh?
And I like tapped Desiree, and I was like, oh my god, Impact just called me. Impact. She was like, what do you mean Impact? She was like, you have to call them back. And I was like, okay. But Scott, I texted him, and he was like, I'm on a plane to Canada, so I'll text you when I get there. And he texted me, and then he called me and told me, what the deal was and what they wanted to offer me. And he sent me over, the paper form, and I told him I was really excited, and I would look it over, and he told me, take your time, we really want to sign you.
Well, I'll tell you something, that must have been a great accomplishment. The first big company that was interested in you. And then, of course, you had, WOW. Tell us about how you got hooked up with them.
So I got hooked up with WoW. I had heard a lot about WoW before I even started. Like, I knew a lot of indie girls were working for WoW, but I didn't know specifically what it was about because I didn't look too deep into it. But I knew a few girls that worked for the company. I actually had like a tarnished name through WoW some kind of way. One of the producers or somebody said that they met me and said I was rude. But I wasn't, because I'm not rude. I'm not even a mean-spirited person, and I wouldn't just shoo anybody off that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So apparently my name got tarnished, and they were looking at me before, but something happened, and then I think something happened with WoW.
Yeah.
When they rebooted, Tessa Blanchard, who's one of my friends, asked me if I would want to work for WoW, if that was something I would be interested in, and I was like, yeah, sure, like, why not? And then David McClain, the owner of WoW, or one of the owners with Genie Bus, called me and he spoke to me about what he potentially wanted me to be, which was Fire, because he loved my image for Fire, which, like you said, I just had the right look that he was looking for this character. My hair was right. He was like, keep your hair color. I love it. Just keep it just like that. Like, and we want you to be Fire for WoW in the first reboot of WoW. And I was like, okay.
And that worked, and it all worked out. So your career is running. And I mean, the locomotive is going down that track, and I'm so happy that you was. I had that opportunity to do that with these different companies. Now, being that you were with these different companies, because when I was strong in the game, they took us all over the world. We went all over the freaking planet to do this thing called professional wrestling. Now, since you've been in the game, have you been out the country besides doing shows in the U.S.? Tell everybody what's up with that.
So the first time I ever used my passport was with Impact, which was very awesome. That the first company I was signed to helped me get out of the country for the first time. Thank God I already had a passport because a failed trip to Canada the first time, but the second time was a go. And I got to do it through Impact when I went to Canada for the first time. I love wrestling in Canada. And I've also been to Mexico. I've been to Mexico with The Crash, and I've been to Mexico with Impact. So, which is really cool. Like, I'm excited to be out of the country. I'm just ready to go overseas. Like, I'm ready to go to, like, Europe and, like, Japan and, like, just wrestle overseas and really get out there.
Well, like I say every time when I do if I'm out on the road and I decide I want to do a promo in the car, letting folks where I'm doing or where I've been, I always say the highway's my home because I love to travel. I love to see this country. So I tell people, man, if you get an opportunity to see the world, and professional wrestling is going to pay for all that for you to do that, I would advise you take the trip, because some people get in the business but they don't like to travel. See, that's that's the most dumbest thing I ever seen. You're going to have to travel to be in professional wrestling. You're not just going to be stuck in one city. You're going to go from city, state to state, country to country if you're good. And some people be like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Well, get into something else. Don't be a professional wrestler. So you're going overseas now. I mean, you had the gig with Impact. You had the gig with WoW. I mean, you're just going on and on. So you do. I've seen you on fan fest that I do, like WrestleCade and things like that. Tell the people how you felt when you got your first call to go do a fan fest big as WrestleCade.
I think I want to say my first fan fest was in Rome, Georgia. I think I also wrestled on that fan fest. I think that was my first fan fest. It was in Rome, Georgia, and it was crazy. Like, that fan fest was huge. You were on that fan fest. And that was the first time I met Tommy Dreamer. And Tommy Dreamer told me, I will never forget this. I think this was either the first... Was it the first time I met Tommy? I think the first time I met Tommy, he literally told me that if he still worked for WWE, he would hire me, which was cool. And ever since then, me and Tommy, like, Tommy works for Impact, and Tommy is, like, Impact's dad. Like, he literally just, he's awesome, and I love him. And, but yeah, my first, like, fan fest was crazy. One, to be able to be around so many people you watched on TV. It's very overwhelming, and you want to meet everybody, but you don't want to meet everybody because you're scared. And I was happy. I wrestled, and Angelina Love was there, who I eventually got to wrestle, who is one of my idols as well, which is cool. I got to check that off my list. But it was just overwhelming. Like, it was super overwhelming, like I said, to see and meet so many people you grew up watching on TV, and like, it was interesting and it was fun, and I had so much fun meeting so many people and networking, because that's always a great thing to do at Fan Fest, is to meet people, and hopefully they see you along the road, i.e. Tommy Dreamer.
Well, so we're gonna rewind just a little bit, because I know you had mentioned it, just a little taste about doing something in the WWE trial type thing. Explain to us this trial that you had with them, and how did it go? And did they like you? Did they give you any words of encouragement? Tell us about it.
So I had my tryout in 2015. I want to say it was 2015. I had only been wrestling for like maybe 6 months or something like that. It might have been less time than that. Actually, it might have been only 3 months when I had my tryout. And I had only had like 5 or 6 real indie matches. So I was super unprepared for that tryout. Experience-wise, like, I feel like I would have done better if I would have had more experience, I guess. But like, nowadays, they're not truly looking for wrestlers. But at the time, like, I just wish I had more experience, like, wrestling, and I wish I would have, like, prepared a little better, like cardio-wise, because I got sick during my tryout, because that tryout is just, it kills you. Like, that tryout is something I feel like you just can't prepare for. Like, it's just, it's very hard-hitting. It's all about drills, and then, of course, at the end, you have, like, at the end of my tryout, we had matches, and they asked me if I wanted to have a match, and I told them no, because I was nervous, and I didn't want to wrestle in front of all the people at WWE. So I do regret that. Like, I do regret not having a match. I do regret not being as confident in myself as I am now. Like, if I go now, I'll be like, give me a match. Like, I'm ready. But, like, you know, I just felt like I was not as prepared. I felt like I wasn't prepared. But they told me, like, they liked me. They liked my personality. They just didn't have a job for me, which I completely understood.
Now, you know, that's important. You know, you have to have confidence if you're going to go to that level of entertainment. You have to be ready to do it, and if you don't, if at least you're being honest, with yourself as far as you know, if you were ready for to do this or not, you know, and so you know, I'm glad you had the opportunity to do that, right? So let's backtrack a little bit. I know you explained it earlier, but I think the ATLien want to hear it in detail about your last name, Hogan. How'd you come up with that?
How did I come up with that? That's a great question, Hughes. Why don't we go all the way back to the beginning when they gave us the name Hogan back in the day, like back in the back days? Because I was born with that name. Sick of talking about.
Is that your real name?
That is my real name, and I was born with that. And I will pull out my ID right now so you can see that my name is Kiera Hogan, and that is the name that I was born with. It's funny though, my mom was actually gonna name me Madison, which is kind of crazy because I work with Madison right now. But you know, yeah, my real name is Hogan, and that's a fact. I actually just tweeted about it. I tweeted about the fact that my real name is Kiera Hogan, and that was the tweet because everybody likes to ridicule me and call me stupid and give me so much bull about my name and how I'm stupid for coming up with that name and picking that name. But I didn't pick that name. I was born with that name.
Well, that's a smart move because I use my real name too, and I don't know if I ever told you that to use your real name in the wrestling business, but you know, you have established and got that name going for yourself. So any other WWE 4 lady wrestlers that inspired you at the school besides Devin, or is there any other wrestlers in the wrestling business that inspired you to do what you do?
Like I said, Mickie James is definitely the top one, but Melina and Angelina Love definitely had a hand in like my heel persona, which I'm doing now. Like I feel like picked a lot of stuff from them, especially wrestling Angelina Love. I love her. I love wrestling her. And I hope to wrestle Melina one day. But I was inspired a lot by like Mickey's era and the women that she came up with, and especially the knockouts. I made a whole vlog about it when I was 16, about the knockouts and how they were better than the divas. So, a lot of the knockouts in that era, and they inspire me a lot.
Kiera, do you feel like that you are in the position now to be inspiring young women to get into wrestling now, and how does that make you feel?
I actually do like being in this part of my life now. I feel that I've gotten a lot of kids and a lot of people in general that tell me like how inspiring I am, and how, like I said, just in this part of my life, I'm super confident in everything that I'm doing, or I'm trying to be way more confident, and just owning what I am and owning what I present and owning my voice and what I say and how I do it, because at the end of the day, I don't want to regret anything that I've not said or done. So I feel like, I have finally gotten to a point where I'm inspiring. I literally have it tattooed on my arm. Like, my aspiration is to inspire others to do what they want and to just follow their dreams.
Well, and that's impressive right there. When you got inspired by someone else as a young person, and now here you are, so many years later, inspiring other young ladies to want to be a professional wrestler. So with that on your shoulders, how do you feel about knowing that that people are looking up to you? Young ladies see you in the ring, they're looking up to you, inspired like, oh, I want to be like Kiera Hogan, girl on fire. I know that could be a lot of pressure on you. Tell me about it.
It warms my heart to know that I have that effect on other people, and I have that effect on young women, and I have that effect on, like I said, just people in general, to touch them so much by what I do, or touch them so much by what I say, or touch them so much by my actions, just to be able to inspire them to hopefully do the same, or just inspire them to do anything. Because that's what I want to encourage, is just to be able to reach for the stars and do just about anything. Like, it's crazy to me, like I said, to have young girls come up to me and cry. I remember going to a show in Georgia, Southern Honor, and a little girl, like, she literally, I cannot remember her name for the life of me, which I can't stand. I don't remember a lot of stuff now. But, like, she literally cried because I didn't say bye to her, and she literally loves me, and that warms my heart, and it made me want to cry to know that, like, she loves me so much, and that's how I still am with, like, Mickie James and stuff. So just to be that for somebody else is
So how important is it now for women's wrestling today? How important is it to you?
Well, it literally is my life. Like, wrestling has become a huge part of my life. My life pretty much revolves around my wrestling schedule. So it's super important to me to be able to be an advocate for women's wrestling, because, like I said, obviously my life revolves around it, and to be in a position and on a platform to be able to showcase my abilities and my talents and my athleticism and everything that I've learned. It's awesome to be able to promote something so positive like women's wrestling that's been looked over for so many years and so much time.
Well, I'll tell you something that you got any upcoming shows you'd like to let the people know about?
This weekend I'm going to be in Winston-Salem for AML. I'm wrestling Renee Michelle once again. And then I will be in Las Vegas for Impact Wrestling on September 5th and 6th for tapings. And then on September 18th and 19th, I will be in California for WoW TV tapings, which is exciting. And then on September 27th, I will be back at RCW defending my women's title.
What a busy schedule this young lady has had, folks. I mean, you heard how she got started and where she came from, and what is she doing in her career today. Now, if anyone wanted to find you on social media, how can they find you, Kiera Hogan?
Well, I'm on Instagram as Hogan Knows Best 18. I just hit 37,000 followers, which is ridiculous. I still don't have a blue check though, so we need to do something about that. And then I'm on Twitter as Hogan Knows Best 3, and 3 comes from my soccer number if anybody wants to know. That's where 3 comes from. And 18 came from because when I was 18 I created my Instagram account. That's literally where it came from. So, and then, of course, you know, I'm on Impact Wrestling every Friday night at 10 o'clock on Twitch. And WoW premieres, Season 2 premieres September 7th. I'm on the first episode, I believe. So I'm super excited for that. It's a whole new dynamic. It's tag team action this season. And, you know, I might show up with some backup, a partner.
Man, I tell you, man, great interview. I tell you, folks, I enjoy bringing my former trainees on here and talking to them and just let the people hear how they got started and where they were going and so forth and so on. So, Kiera Hogan from Total Protection Mr. Hughes, I'd like to thank you for joining us, me and my co-host, the ATLien, on the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast. Now, AT, we got a few more minutes. Tell the people how they can reach you.
I am DEATLien on all social media networks.
And I'm Total Protection Mr. Hughes. You can find me at Mr. Hughes, Total Protection Mr. Hughes on Facebook, and Curtis Mr. Hughes on Facebook, and on Instagram, it's the Bodyguard Hughes on Instagram. Folks, for Total Protection Mr. Hughes, please follow and like and subscribe to the Total Protection Mr. Hughes YouTube page, and listen and watch the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast. For Total Protection Mr. Hughes, the ATLien, and the girl on fire, Kiera Hogan, we'll see you next time here live at the Total Protection Mr. Hughes podcast. Goodbye, everybody.